How's it going, everyone? Nick Templin here from Templin Scouting, and welcome to my 2026 NHL Playoff Prediction and Series Breakdown video. So the start of this video, we're just going to go down and look at every single playoff series, just kind of look at the head-to-head matchup here and some of the underlying numbers for each of these teams. And then at the end of the video, we're going to switch over to NHL.com. We're going to go do the bracket challenge, and I'm going to do my prediction for the playoffs this year. So we're going to start with the Colorado Avalanche versus the Los Angeles Kings series. So obviously Colorado winning the President's Trophy this year, went on a very dominant run all season. So they're going to be a really hard team to put out in the playoffs this year. The head-to-head record between these teams, Colorado won all three of their matchups, and I don't think they were particularly close. Looking at the expected goals percentage at 5-on-5, this was a number that Colorado dominated all season, but it's not a number that the Kings are all that shabby in themselves. They actually finished 7th in this regard, so a couple of teams that like to dictate the possession of games and create more chances than their opponents. Then we look at the power play ranks. So Colorado has the 27th ranked power play, which was a bit surprising this year considering the personnel that they have. But then if you look at the Kings penalty kill, which is ranked 30th, that might kind of inflate those numbers coming into the playoffs a little bit for the Avalanche, getting a chance to consistently play against what would be considered a weaker penalty kill across the league. If you look at the Kings power play, also not very strong at 28th in the league, just a little bit worse than Colorado's this season. And then if you look at the penalty kill for Colorado, that's not going to do LA any favors on special teams. It was first this year, best penalty kill across the entire league. Then we're going to look at the goaltender matchup. So I have predicted the Game 1 starters to be Scott Wedgwood and Anton Forsberg, which is a bit of an interesting matchup considering that neither one were probably expected to be starters for their team coming into the season. And Anton Forsberg never really fully took over the reins, I don't think, this season. But when you look at the underlying numbers for Forsberg compared to Darcy Kemper, he's been the better of the two goalies for them this year. They could always go back to Kemper because they know he has the playoff experience, having won the Stanley Cup with the Colorado Avalanche a few years back. So that is definitely a possibility, but also important to consider that Anton Forsberg is definitely a guy that DJ Smith knows well from their time back in Ottawa together. So potentially he's a guy that he trusts to take the reins coming into the playoffs. And if you're going to take on Colorado, you need the best goaltending you can get. So you might as well go with the guy who's put up the best numbers for you this year. When you look at Scott Wedgwood, it's definitely a battle between him and Mackenzie Blackwood because both of them played so extremely well for Colorado this year. But when you look at Wedgwood's numbers, he was among the best in the league in so many categories, namely the goals against average and save percentage, and then 5th in the league in goals saved above expected, putting up a phenomenal 23.1. So those numbers were just a little bit better than Mackenzie Blackwood. He also got a couple more starts than Blackwood. I think Blackwood was maybe hurt to start the year though, so that might have been the reason why for that. They could really go either way there. I don't think that they will have any issues, regardless of what goalie starts for them, but I do think Wedgwood makes sense right now considering the season that he's just had. So my final thoughts on this series are that it will be decided at 5-on-5 mainly, although I do think that Colorado will get the slight edge on the special teams just because of the strength of their penalty kill and how weak the Kings' penalty kill is. I think that the power play for the Avs can't kind of remain dormant forever. For LA as the underdog, the question is, can you contain the high volume of offensive output by guys like McKinnon, Makar, Nietzsche, Nelson, Nichushkin, Kadri, and honestly, at this point, even we can throw in Parker Kelly. I mean, look at how many goals he scored this year, coming off mainly the fourth line. So Colorado can kind of swallow you up and beat you with any line they have at 5-on-5. And then, like I said, the penalty kill will be a huge factor as well. So they're a huge mountain for them to overcome. Adrian Kempe provides a lot of the bulk of the offense for LA. and his play got even stronger with the addition of Panarin, who provides another substantial spark for the Kings offense. But my concern for LA is the lack of depth scoring. Their top six can score at a reasonable pace, but the bottom six will have to step up and score the gritty goals to give them a chance. Colorado has also received the best goaltending tandem in the league this season. LA's best goaltender has been Anton Forsberg, as I had mentioned, who ranks 18th in goals saved above expected, compared to Darcy Kemper, who ranks 77th. For LA to give themselves the best chance in this series, they should start Forsberg, but like I said, I do think that this one's a bit of a long shot for LA. Next up, we have the Dallas Stars versus the Minnesota Wild, which should be one of the best series to watch here in the first round, because if you look at the numbers here, there's not a whole lot to kind of separate these two teams. When they played this season, their head-to-head record was essentially even, although Dallas got the one overtime point over Minnesota. So points-wise, Dallas ends up with the better record there, but when you're talking about the playoffs, overtime losses count the same, right? So really this was about as even as of a head-to-head matchup as you could get this season. Looking at the 5-on-5 expected goals percentages, both of them rank near the top 10. They're 11th and 13th respectively there. So both teams, probably outperformed their play on the ice a little bit this year, but you can't deny the talent that both of these rosters have. That they're both going to be really strong competitors down the stretch. When you look at the power play, it's the second and third best power plays in the league. Penalty kill, the 13th and 16th best. So I think whichever team stays out of the penalty box is going to do themselves more favors than the other. That's going to be a huge aspect of this series. And then if we look at the goaltender matchups here, so it's going to be Jake Ottinger versus, I'm predicting Philip Gustafsson, but I do think there's a chance that Jesper Wallstedt could start some games. I just think that coming into game one, you're usually going to go with your more experienced goaltender, and that's Philip Gustafsson. I do think Wallstedt did put up better numbers, but I think they were close enough, and Gustafsson still had quite a strong season that I do like him starting game one, but again, I could go either way on that. Jake Ottinger didn't have his best season, I would say. I think that some of those numbers are definitely below his typical standards, but I think he's one of those guys that when he gets to the playoffs, you can kind of wipe the slate clean, because he can show up and perform and really dominate and steal games for the Stars, which will be massive for them. I think Gustafsson can do that too, to an extent. I do give the edge in the goaltender matchup to Dallas, regardless of whether it's Gustafsson or Wallstedt that starts for them. I do think that Ottinger is the guy that you're scared to play against when it comes to the playoffs. So my final thoughts on this series, there's not much to separate these two teams statistically. I think this will be one of the closest matchups in the first round. I could easily see it going either way. Minnesota's biggest downfall may be the lack of offense they receive outside of their top six forwards. That can be partially made up for by their defense's ability to put up points. To win, they have to play a tight checking brand of hockey and really shut down Dallas's scorers. If they get into high-scoring games, I don't like their chances of keeping pace. Dallas has to set the pace in this series, or they could risk losing control of it. They have the advantage when it comes to depth on offense. They're lucky enough to have a home ice advantage because in the games when Minnesota has it, they can easily match up against bottom defense pair of Dallas with guys like Hughes and Kaprizov to really attack that, what I would say is a weaker bottom pair for Dallas. They need to make sure not to give up too many icings on the road and get the right matchups out there, even if that means playing Heiskanen nearly 30 minutes a night on the road. Next up, we have the Vegas Golden Knights playing the Utah Mammoth, which is a cool series to see, I think. A couple of Utah is technically a new franchise, Vegas being one of the newer franchises. So two teams that don't have any history against each other in the playoffs, and it's good to see some of those players that were Arizona Coyotes in the past, see them finally make the playoffs as a relatively intact core from there. So just taking a look at the head-to-head record, Utah actually had the the advantage there, winning 2 out of the 3 matchups between the two teams. To provide a little bit of context, and this will be something we talk about a lot with the Vegas Golden Knights, in 2 of those games, the goaltending was incredibly poor for Vegas. They had one game where they had to start their 4th string goaltender, Carl Lindbaum, and he struggled. And then in the most recent battle between these two teams, Aiden Hill gave up 3 goals on the first 3 shots of the game. So not to take anything away from Utah, you do what you can in those games, and they truly did dominate, and they were able to swallow Vegas defensively completely, only giving up 2 goals to them across the 2 goals across the 2 wins, I should say. They did give up 4 goals in the 1 Vegas win. So obviously they figured out how to play Vegas defensively. But I do want to provide a little bit of context there that goaltending was a major factor in both of those Vegas losses there. In the 5-on-5 goals, expected goals, both of these teams rank amongst the top 10. So 2 teams that play really structural games, 4th place and 6th place, just both quality from that perspective. Power play rank, Vegas is 6th in the league, whereas Utah is 18th in the league. It's not terribly surprising for Vegas. They do have a lot of really strong power play players. So special teams is definitely going to be a massive advantage for Vegas because their penalty kill is also tied for 6th. Meanwhile, Utah's is 19th in the league. So Utah's key to victory is going to be discipline, playing 5-on-5, because when you look at that metric, they're actually quite close to Vegas as a 5-on-5 team. Goaltender matchup that we're expecting for this one. So for Vegas, it's a bit of a question mark. I think the goaltender that did play their best hockey for Vegas over the course of the season was probably Akira Schmid. He put up the best numbers for them. But ever since John Tortorella has taken over, Carter Hart has been the guy. And Tortorella used him over the rest of the season here, and Carter Hart has been up to the challenge, played some pretty decent hockey for them. If you look at the stats from the season overall, pretty rough. 73rd in goals scored above expected. And then if you look at his goals against average, not as bad, but save percentage, not so strong. So I do think that, the last little while has been a bit of an uptick in performance from him. So it'll be interesting to see if he can kind of ride that high going into the playoffs. Looking at Karel Vejmelka, he's put up, I would say, relatively average numbers this season. I think that he probably gives you the slight goaltender advantage, but I think it's almost negligible. And especially if Carter Hart plays the way he was playing down the stretch, then you can almost give the advantage to Vegas in the goaltender regard. I don't think that goaltenders are necessarily going to decide this series, but there is a chance that one of them kind of breaks out and has a couple of really good games. So my final thoughts on this series. Vegas is undoubtedly the better team on paper, but goaltending has held them back all season. Utah is a much better team than their record would indicate. Utah has to play a disciplined series to have their best chance of the upset. The 5-on-5 metrics are roughly even, but Vegas excels on special teams. It's difficult to anticipate what the goaltending in the series will look like. Either goalie could steal a game or lose the game for their team. All right, now on to the Edmonton Oilers versus the Anaheim Ducks. Their head-to-head record this season saw Edmonton win 2 out of the 3 matchups between the two. The 5-on-5 expected goals numbers are actually quite good for both teams, both sitting just inside the top 10 there at 10th and 9th respectively there. The Oilers do have the number 1 power play in the league, no surprise there. Their team is built to be very strong on the special teams side. Anaheim struggling a little bit more, 23rd on the power play, struggling a fair bit more, I should say. And then the Oilers' penalty kill, not super strong. I wouldn't say it's super weak either. Penalty kill for the Ducks, probably one of the worst aspects of the team this season. So something that will definitely dictate this series if Anaheim ends up in the penalty box a lot. The goaltender matchup, also very interesting. I'm expecting that the Oilers will go with Connor Ingram. He has been the guy for the majority of the season, ever since acquiring Tristan Jarry, who just has not worked out for Edmonton at all. Looking at his numbers, it's actually quite impressive to see an Oilers goaltender with a positive goals saved above expected number, even if it's kind of roughly just above average there. And then looking at his goals against average, not too bad. Edmonton's been playing structurally solid defense in front of him. And save percentage, I mean, you can win a lot of games with an 8.99 save percentage. Looking at Anaheim and Lucas Dostal, I think it's not been a super strong season for him. I don't think the numbers are doing him fully justice this year. I do think he's a better goalie than those numbers would suggest. I think he's a guy who is capable of stealing games for you. Like, he's a guy who can sit in there and make a lot of saves when needed. But I do think that the Oilers were kind of lucky in this situation to have a rare opportunity where they may actually have the advantage with goaltending. So my final thoughts on this series, the Oilers have the experience. Their biggest weaknesses are goaltending and depth scoring, but the Oilers have proved year after year that depth scoring doesn't matter in the early rounds because McDavid and Draisaitl can always just take over. They also walked into a series where they should actually have the goaltending advantage on paper. If the Ducks want to win this series, they have to capitalize on good discipline, and they need to also jump on Oiler mistakes. They are far from perfect structurally, the Oilers, but if you don't take your chances, it'll be a tough series because they almost always capitalize on other teams' mistakes. So if you're the Ducks, you're a young team, there are going to be mistakes. You're going to have to assume that here and there, some of the stars of the Oilers are going to jump on you and take advantage of some of those mistakes. You got to do the same whenever the Oilers make mistakes too. All right, now on to the Buffalo Sabres versus the Boston Bruins. The Buffalo Sabres are going to be making their much anticipated return to the NHL Playoffs this season. But looking at the head-to-head record between them and their opponent, the Boston Bruins, Boston had their number this year with 3 wins in 4 games. When you look at the 5-on-5 expected goal percentage numbers, the Oilers just around league average there, whereas the Bruins were sitting near the bottom of the league in that metric. Just kind of goes to show the Bruins have kind of taken a step back this year in terms of their defensive structure. We'll kind of get a little bit more into why they've been able to kind of work around that. Part of it is the special teams, which we'll mention now. Sabres power play tied for 20th in the league, whereas the Bruins were able to put up a 9th ranked power play this year. They've got a lot of shooting options on both units, which has helped them out a lot in that regard. When you look at the Sabres, though, they do have the penalty kill advantage to Boston, 4th versus 24th. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how special teams has an effect on this series, to see if Buffalo's power play will look stronger against the Boston penalty kill, or kind of if it'll be the other way around. So that'll be kind of one of the interesting factors to kind of look at there. Looking at the goaltender matchup, it's going to be Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen versus Jeremy Swayman. This one's pretty much set in stone. These both goalies have played incredibly good hockey this year for their teams. Look at Luukkonen and Swayman, both putting up good goals saved above expected numbers, but Swayman's second in the league in that number, 28.8, which kind of goes to show when you also look at his goals against average, which is 22nd, so a fair bit lower. It really goes to show that the structure in front of Swayman hasn't been its best this year, and he's having to make a lot of high danger saves, and he's capable of doing it, and he's done it. So the question is, can he keep that going into the playoffs here, or is that going to kind of fall apart when they come up against a team like Buffalo, who can really put forth a strong offensive effort and put up a lot of high danger chances themselves? I would give the goaltending edge slightly to Swayman, but I could really see that going either way. So my final thoughts on this series: Boston got the better of Buffalo during the season, but Buffalo comes in as the better team on paper. The goaltending and special teams battles should be fascinating in this series. Boston has the team experience, while Buffalo has the more experienced coach. Where Boston loses me a little bit is in the stats. As I said, the stats tell a story that this team has lost its defensive structure at times. Swayman has bailed them out. His goals saved above expected numbers when considering the poor goals against average just goes to show how many shots and high danger chances the Bruins give up. The Sabres tend to pounce on teams that play that way, but the playoffs are a clean slate, and with the personnel on the Bruins roster, they could be able to turn that around. Next up, we have a Stanley Cup rematch, but in the first round here between the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Montreal Canadiens. Kind of crazy to think back to that COVID season when these two teams found themselves in that final against each other. So looking at the head-to-head record, it's pretty even. Like I said before, Montreal, they got the points win over Tampa Bay, but when it comes to actual head-to-head and how you look at things for the playoffs, that's dead even. So if you look at the 5-on-5 expected goals percentage number, so Tampa ranks 5th in the league in that metric. Not a surprise. They play very structured hockey, high offense at times, but the defensive structure is always in place with them. Looking at Montreal, they do struggle in this number, this metric a fair bit, 24th in the league. So Tampa would be expected to kind of dictate the play across this series, and Montreal is just going to have to either battle back or figure out how to weather the storm. Power play rank. So Montreal actually has the better power play of the two this year. Also not that surprising when you look at the personnel that Montreal has going for them. Lane Hudson has become a very strong power play quarterback. You've got Nick Suzuki just put up his first 100-point season. You got Cole Caulfield, 50-goal scorer. You've got Juraj Slafkovsky, who is a great net front presence, and I kind of like to use the term floor spacer with him, kind of like an NBA, strategy where you always have to worry that he's there, but he's not always the number one option, and I think that he's really useful in that regard. When you look at the penalty kill, so Tampa does have the third-ranked penalty kill. Not surprising when you got guys like Hagel and Cirelli and Nick Paul, and just a really defensively sound team in general. Compared to Montreal, the 18th-ranked penalty kill, not bad, not great either. And this will be the goaltending battle for this series, I would expect. So obviously Andrei Vasilevsky is going to get the start for Tampa Bay. Once again, just put up a phenomenal season. And when it comes to goaltenders in the playoffs, he might be the guy that you don't want to face in the playoffs. Compared to Jakub Dobeš, who I would say isn't guaranteed to be the starter, but was kind of the starter down the stretch for Montreal this year, and definitely put up really good numbers doing so. Definitely legitimized them down the stretch and gave them a shot at a conference title this year. Just falling a couple of points short there. Both goaltenders putting up good numbers this season. I think, again, if you kind of look at that goals against average compared to the goals saved above expected, it's another kind of question mark of how good is the defensive structure in front of you, because clearly he's playing pretty well. He's taking away high danger chances. So Montreal's just going to have to tighten up a little bit defensively if they're going to weather the storm against the Lightning. So my final thoughts for this series: Montreal has undeniable skill across their lineup. Suzuki has proven himself to be the league's best two-way forward. Caulfield reached 50 goals. Slafkovsky has emerged as a legitimate scoring threat, and Hudson and Dobson are providing offense from the back end. There's a lot to like about this roster on paper. Structurally, they have kind of outperformed their play. So Dobeš has had a difficult job righting the ship in net for Montreal. A team that produces as much offensively as they do should always dictate the pace of the game, and they kind of struggle to do that. Tampa is more experienced. While I believe them to be lacking depth in offense in their bottom six, their defensive depth cannot be topped. Radish has emerged as a true offensive threat, and Destu has proven that he can defend against the top players in this league. Kucherov, Hagel, Hedman, Gensel, and Vasilevsky are all on their game, but they could use more from Braden Point if they want to be true contenders. It'll be fascinating to see how this series shakes out and if Montreal can solidify their defensive systematic issues to break through and be the contender that they are capable of being. Next up has been a widely talked about series ever since it's been announced here, and that's between the Carolina Hurricanes and the Ottawa Senators. Now head-to-head, Carolina got 2 early wins against Ottawa, and Ottawa was able to pull off a win later on in the season, which really helped propel their chances of getting into that last wildcard spot in the East. An impressive victory down a couple of key defensemen. So, really interesting to see how this is going to shake out with both teams in the playoffs here. When you look at the 5-on-5 expected goals numbers, this is why this is probably one of the most anticipated series of the first round, because this is the second best and third best team in terms of that metric. So both teams that play really dominating hockey at 5-on-5 going up against each other. But then if you compare special teams, I would give Carolina the advantage there. Their power play 4th. Ottawa's pretty good at 8th. But their penalty kill in Carolina 11th, so one of the better ones in the league, versus Ottawa's, which is at 29th. I do know that Ottawa's got a fair bit better in the second half of the season when they switched the coaches who were in charge of the penalty kill. They went to a new system and it seemed to work a little bit better for them, but regardless of that, it didn't bring the numbers on that up for them too much. Now this will be a very interesting goaltending matchup to look at, and when we look at Carolina, I would say I don't even think it's set in stone that Brendan Bussey is going to be their Game 1 starter. I think that based on how he played for the majority of the season, he was their best goaltender, but things kind of started to dwindle for him a little bit in the late stretches of the season. Pyotr Kochetkov is healthy now and could potentially get into the games. I think that he would probably be the guy that they would most like to have play, but it'll just kind of depend on how ready he is to just jump into playoff hockey. And then aside from that, they also have Frederik Andersen, who struggled quite a bit this season, but they might also covet his experience. He's played in big playoff games in the past, so there is always the chance that that's the guy they want to go with. And then, of course, on the other side, Linus Ullmark, who had what I'm sure he would consider himself to be a down year. Now, I do think that the play has improved significantly from him in the second half of the season, which is key for Ottawa and why they were able to get where they got in the standings and why they were able to win so many games down the stretch. His game definitely improved, so I don't think the numbers tell the full story on Ullmark, and I do think for both sides, for their goaltending, it's a bit of a clean slate, so you can kind of see what they bring to the table come playoff time here. So my final thoughts on this series: the Hurricanes have been consistently winning at least a playoff round every year with this core. So it would be hard to imagine them not making a solid push again. This team plays complete structured hockey in all 3 zones, and their special teams are truly special. The only gap in this team's game has been their goaltending. Bussey was looking like a solid answer for a while, but now that there's a possibility he won't even start in the playoffs. Kochetkov is back and healthy, and Anderson's experience may be a deciding factor. But none of them have played particularly well lately, especially Anderson. Ottawa has had nearly the same story, excellent structured hockey, with goaltending being the main issue, but they've had kind of the opposite trajectory as Ullmark's play has improved significantly in the last 2 months of the season. So the Senators as a whole are on a strong trajectory, and they look ready to be dragged into any battle this year. This is far and away the series to watch in round 1. The winner will almost certainly go on a long run. The final series to talk about in round one here is the Pittsburgh Penguins versus the Philadelphia Flyers. So taking a look at their head-to-head record this year, they went even across. Both of Philly's wins came in overtime, but again, looking to playoffs. An overtime win counts the same way. 5-on-5 goals. This was a metric that both teams were solid in. They were both top 15, so they're pretty even in that regard. But then when you look at the special teams, that's when Pittsburgh really looks like they're going to pull away. 7th in power play, 6th in penalty kill versus the last power play in the entire league. So really a struggle for the Philadelphia Flyers to score on the power play this year. And their penalty kill not too great either, tied for 21st in the league. But this is the part where Philadelphia should have the advantage, and that's in the goaltending department. Dan Vladar put up really great numbers this season, really proved himself to be a proper starting goaltender in the NHL this year. Meanwhile, I'm not 100% sure whether the Penguins will go with Stuart Skinner or Artur Shilovs. Skinner put up better underlying numbers with pretty decent goals saved above expected numbers this year. But she loves, neither one really pulled away with it. I think they started fairly even number of games down the stretch. And Skinner has the bonus of the fact that he's just played in 2 Stanley Cup Finals in consecutive years. So at least if you're the Penguins, even if Skinner doesn't give you the strongest goaltending, he can battle through a fair bit of adversity come playoff time. So, there is that aspect of it, but there should be no reason that a Penguins goalie outplays Dan Vladar in this season or in this series. So my final thoughts on this series: the Flyers have to be careful not to get dragged into an emotional battle. Pittsburgh will easily win if this becomes a special teams battle. The best chance to keep up with them is to play 5-on-5, where these teams are more even. The Flyers also have the goaltending advantage, and it's significant. Dan Vladar has been a proven starter in Philly this year. There's one thing that analytics can't really account for, though, and that is Sidney Crosby in the playoffs. He elevates his play, and he elevates the play of everyone around him, so that's always a factor to keep an eye out for. All right, so now that we've done all that analysis on what we kind of expect the playoffs to look like this year, it's time to actually make our picks. So I'm going to go through, and I'll try not to be too boring. I do want some upsets in here, and I do expect that some are very possible, some more than others. But I think the first pick that we can get out of the way, Colorado is going to win this series. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a sweep, but I think when I pick how many games at the end here, I'm probably going to go with 5 games. I think that Colorado is going to be an incredibly hard team to put out in the playoffs this year, and you have to be really solid front to back to be able to do it. And I don't think that the Kings have what it takes to get through them. So, of course, I could always be proven wrong, but I think that would be one of the great upsets of all time if the Kings were able to pull that off this year. Next up, Dallas and Minnesota, and I keep racking myself back and forth about how I feel like this one's going to go. I think that Dallas has the advantage in terms of depth and high-end skill. Well, maybe not high-end skill, because when you look at guys like Quinn Hughes and Kaprizov, they're probably the 2 best players in the entire series. But I think that Dallas can defend them pretty well. I don't know. I think I'm going to go with Minnesota, actually. I think I've talked myself out of Dallas. Really, this one could go either way. I'd be shocked if it doesn't go to 7 games. It's one I've been thinking about for a while because we've kind of known for a while that was going to be one of the first-round matchups this year. And really, I haven't had a consistent answer all year. I think that one's really 50-50. Next, we're looking at Vegas and Utah. So, Vegas on paper, that offensive group and even really their defensive core is the type of team that really should be capable of going on a deep run. The problem is just really I don't trust the goaltending there. I don't think for a deep run. Do I trust it enough for them to get through round 1? Potentially. It's definitely possible. I think that Utah is a much better team than a lot of people realize. I think they were just structurally really sound this year, and I think that they get kind of quiet offense from some of the guys in the top of their lineup, and the depth is really good there too. I like the physicality that they have in the bottom of their lineup too. So it's really hard to say. I think I'm going to go with Vegas. I just think that the high-end skill is just a little bit better. Early on when Utah was potentially getting matchups against a few other teams, I was picking them to go quite far in the playoffs. But I do think that Vegas just has the depth to get past Utah. I'm going to choose Edmonton pretty easily there. I just think that they've got the experience, and I just don't think that Anaheim can match up to them this year. I'm going to go 5 games for Colorado, 7 games for Minnesota. I'll go 6 games for Vegas. I could see that going a little bit longer. And I think I'm going to go 6 games for Edmonton as well. I could see them kind of having a couple of slower games, as they tend to do early on in the playoffs before they really get rolling. So we'll click next on that, and we will move to the Eastern Conference here. So Buffalo versus Boston is going to be a tough one, I think, for me to kind of come to a consensus on, but I think I am actually going to go Boston here, and I hate to do that to the Buffalo Sabres fans who have been waiting so long for their team to return to the playoffs, and I really like to see them go on a deep run. I think Buffalo's depth might be better than Boston's, but I think if Boston just figures out that defensive structure just a little bit better, or enough to hold off of Buffalo's top scorers, I think they can really get through. I think Swayman has the ability to steal some games for them, and you can never count out David Pastrnak, who could really take over a series. So it's really tough, but I am going to go Boston on that one. And then I'm going to also go with Tampa Bay as well. I don't know if I trust Montreal's lack of experience versus Tampa's abundance of experience, and it's really hard to beat Andrei Vasilevsky in a 7-game series. Like, if you're able to beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, you should be able to go on and win the cup like Florida has the last couple of years. Ottawa and Carolina. This one, again, I think is going to be one of the best series of the playoffs. I think Ottawa's going to take it. I think they're just playing their best hockey at the right time. So I could really see them, finding a way past this juggernaut of a team in Carolina and really shocking everybody. I think, the desire of the players in that room is really high right now, especially Brady Tkachuk watching his brother win the last couple of years. Like, I would be surprised if they don't do everything in their power to just squeeze past Carolina there in round 1. And finally, I am going to go with Pittsburgh. I just don't have a lot of trust in Philadelphia's group. Their special teams obviously not very strong, but when you look at their forwards, it's a bit hard to trust that group. I just don't think there's enough high-end skill there for Philadelphia to get past Pittsburgh. And when you look at Pittsburgh, like, Crosby is still playing really good hockey. Erik Karlsson has come back to playing some of the best hockey of his career. So there's just so many veterans in Pittsburgh that I think just know what it takes to get through in the playoffs, on top of the fact that I do like a lot of their underlying numbers this year anyways. So that's why I'm going in that direction. Boston, Buffalo, I think I'll go with a 7-game series. I think I'll go 6 for Tampa Bay over Montreal. I will go 7 for Ottawa beating Carolina. And I will go, I think, 5 games for Pittsburgh over Philadelphia. Again, I'm sure that, some of these predictions are going to go pretty poorly for me, and people will be sure to let me know in the comments when that happens, but that's all part of the fun of trying to predict these playoff matchups. Colorado, I'm going to have them moving past Minnesota. I just think that, Colorado is just, they're a juggernaut this year. It's going to be really hard to beat them. Vegas versus Edmonton, tough one there. That's going to be another goaltending question mark kind of series, but if we trust that Ingram will continue to play better than the way that Vegas's goalies have been playing, it's hard not to give Edmonton the advantage in that series. Then looking at Boston versus Tampa Bay, I'm going to take Tampa Bay. I just trust their experience to go deep. I think Ottawa's a structurally better team right now than the Pittsburgh Penguins are. So we've got our final 4 there. I don't think Edmonton's going to be able to hold off Colorado in a 7-game series. I think that's when the defensive lapses and the goaltending issues are going to kind of show for Edmonton. You can't really afford to make those mistakes against a team like Colorado. And then on the eastern side, I'm going to have Tampa Bay making it through. So we are going to have a rematch of the, I want to say 2021 Stanley Cup Final. That might be too early. 2022 maybe. Anyways, last time Colorado won the Stanley Cup, this was the matchup. And I am going to stick with Colorado. I just don't think there's any holes in their game. I think that they're going to be a really tough team to put out in a 7-game series this year. They just really have it all, with the exception of a power play. But I think we all know that could come back at any time here coming into the playoffs. So yeah, let me know who you guys have winning the cup this year, and who you have making the finals. Be really curious to know, because I think it is pretty open-ended this year. I think that there's no one team, with the exception of Colorado, that has really looked all that dominant on either side of the bracket. So I'm sure there will be a lot of kind of unique answers beyond just picking your favorite team to win. So yeah, and the next couple of weeks, I will be working on the first kind of rush of mock draft videos. So I've been working pretty hard the last little while, just kind of making sure my rankings are ready to go for that content to start being made. So keep an eye out, subscribe, and you're going to see that stuff starting to come out soon.